The headline today reads, "The End of Northern Monopoly, Tinubu's Plan to Reshape Nigeria Forever." This is no small topic. It speaks to a fundamental shift in Nigeria's political and economic landscape. What we're seeing now is a combination of bold reforms and an emerging power struggle that could forever change the country's political fabric. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration, since taking office, has been pushing a comprehensive agenda aimed at transforming Nigeria's economy, government structure, and resource distribution. Now, when we talk about northern monopoly, what does it really mean? Well, the northern region of Nigeria has traditionally held considerable influence, not just in the politics of the country, but also in how resources, development, and power have been distributed. The perception that northern Nigeria has been favored in terms of political appointments, military leadership, and access to state resources has lingered for decades. But now, under Tinubu's government, things are starting to change. There are discussions of breaking down these regional monopolies and redistributing political and economic power more equitably across the country. It's important to note that this isn't just about taking power away from the north. Instead, it's about creating a level playing field where all regions can thrive. Tinubu's approach seems to be to ensure that regions with less economic or political power have a fair chance to compete. But what exactly are these changes? First, one of the most talked about reforms is the tax policy overhaul. Tinubu has pushed for a new tax system aimed at improving revenue collection across the country. This would reduce Nigeria's reliance on oil revenues and, in theory, make the country's economy more sustainable in the long term. By targeting areas such as the VAT system, business tax compliance, and oil sector revenue, he is looking to streamline the system and make sure that every state, including those in the north, contributes to the national pot. However, these changes come with challenges. For one, many northern states depend heavily on federal transfers, and any reduction in these transfers would hit them hardest. There's no doubt that the north feels this, as the revenue system is being disrupted in favor of a more equitable distribution model. But this is where the real debate begins. Is this change fair? Or is it just another way to shift power from one region to another? On the ground, the people in the north are reacting. Some have voiced concerns that the region's development could be slowed down because of reduced government funding. But what President Tinubu is doing is reallocating these funds more strategically. He's focusing on national development rather than regional favoritism. As a result, we're seeing massive infrastructure projects not just in the north, but in other parts of the country as well. These projects are designed to foster national integration and support economic growth. Moreover, let's talk about political appointments. Under the previous administrations, northern leaders held a significant proportion of key positions, from military leadership to the presidency itself. Tinubu's government has attempted to strike a balance. Yes, northern states are still influential, but there are now more calls for a more meritocratic approach. He's appointing individuals based on competence and capability rather than on their ethnic or regional background. This isn't just a power struggle, it's a massive shift in how things are done in Nigeria. For the first time in years, we're seeing serious efforts to rebalance the political structure in favor of fairness and transparency. However, it's important to keep in mind that this restructuring will not be without its opposition. Some northern elites are uncomfortable with this shift. They feel that the changes threaten their hold on power and the economic benefits they have long enjoyed. But as with all political change, not everyone will be on board. The question is, can the Tinubu administration push through these reforms in a way that is not only fair, but also sustainable? Now, let's talk about the broader implications of these changes. If Tinubu's reforms succeed, Nigeria could see a future where every region has an equal stake in the country's success. The idea of fairness in resource distribution is something that every Nigerian citizen, no matter where they live, should care about. And the potential for economic prosperity across the country is real. When every region competes fairly, businesses thrive, jobs are created, and public services improve. But of course, it's not just about economics and politics. Security is another critical aspect of this transition. In the north, the challenges of banditry, insurgency, and terrorism have been front and center. If the economy in this region starts to thrive, it could potentially reduce the grievances that lead to these issues. When people are engaged in economic growth and development, they are less likely to resort to violence. So, these political and economic shifts might just hold the key to addressing some of Nigeria's most pressing security challenges. Now, I know that some of you might be thinking, is this all too ambitious? Are we really going to see a dramatic shift in how power is distributed in Nigeria? Well, the answer lies in how well these reforms are implemented. A shift of this magnitude requires not only political will, but also public buy-in. And that's where you and I come in. It's up to the people of Nigeria to ensure that these changes lead to real, tangible results. We have to ask ourselves, what kind of Nigeria do we want to live in? One where power is hoarded by the few, or one where every region has an equal opportunity to succeed? The future of the country depends on these decisions, and we are all part of this story. Thank you for your patience. Let's continue. Now, as we dig deeper into these shifts happening in Nigeria, it's important to consider the political landscape moving forward. There are multiple layers to this story, and the pace at which these changes happen will be crucial. One of the major points of contention is how the government will manage the expectations of the various regions, especially when it comes to distributing resources and political power. There's always a balance to strike between fairness and practicality. And Tinubu's government will need to be strategic in maintaining that balance. The northern region's response to these changes has been mixed. While many in the region are hopeful that these reforms could lead to greater national stability, others fear that the restructuring could lead to more marginalization. It's easy to see why. For decades, the northern elites have held significant sway over both political and economic decisions. From the military leadership to government appointments, there's been a strong presence of northern leadership in key areas. If this changes, the balance of power could shift dramatically. But what we need to understand is that change is necessary for progress. As Tinubu pushes forward with his plan to reshape Nigeria, the goal is to create a system where every region is empowered to succeed on its own merits. This isn't about weakening the North, it's about ensuring that every region has the chance to thrive. For too long, political and economic power has been concentrated in a few hands. Now the focus is on decentralizing that power and creating opportunities for everyone, whether they are from the North, South, East, or West. At the heart of this change is economic reform. The government's push to overhaul Nigeria's tax system is a major step in this direction. By broadening the tax base and ensuring that revenue generation is more evenly distributed, Nigeria can move away from its over-reliance on oil and build a more sustainable economy. This means that no matter where you live, you'll feel the impact of these changes, whether it's through improved infrastructure, better healthcare, or more job opportunities. Another important aspect of these reforms is the emphasis on merit over regional affiliation when it comes to appointments and political power. For years, Nigeria has struggled with a system where ethnic and regional loyalties often outweigh competence and qualifications. This has led to inefficiencies and corruption at all levels of government. Tinubu's government is working to change that by prioritizing skill, experience, and results. This approach could help Nigeria build a government that's more efficient, transparent, and accountable to the people. But of course, change never comes without challenges. There are those who feel that these reforms threaten their status and power. They argue that the changes could destabilize the country, especially if they lead to the redistribution of resources and political positions. This resistance is to be expected. Power structures that have been in place for decades are not easily dismantled. But the fact remains that if Nigeria is to move forward as a unified nation, these changes must be embraced. The country cannot afford to stay stuck in the past. The next step in this process will be how Tinubu handles the growing opposition to his reforms. He has already faced criticism from some northern leaders, but the real test will be in the coming months as these reforms begin to take shape. Will he be able to bring together all the regions of Nigeria, or will the opposition continue to resist? this will be the defining moment in his presidency. What we can hope for, though, is that as Nigeria continues to push for these structural changes, there will be a greater emphasis on unity and development. This is a time for Nigerians to come together and support the efforts to transform the country. The task is monumental, but the reward could be equally significant. As we continue to follow these developments, I encourage you to stay informed. Keep an eye on how these reforms unfold. Pay attention to what's happening in your own region, and if you haven't already, make sure to stay connected because we'll continue bringing you updates as things progress. Like this video, if you found this discussion insightful, share it with your friends and don't forget to subscribe so you can stay updated on everything happening in Nigeria. Your thoughts matter, so drop your comments below. What do you think about these reforms? Do you think they'll help Nigeria become more fair and prosperous, or do you see other challenges ahead? We'd love to hear from you. If you think we should continue covering this topic, just let us know in the comments.